Um, yeah, so delighted to have a chance to spend another Saturday morning with you all, and wanted to continue today with the same carry a follow on from the talk that I did on Tuesday on developing wishing love, and this is all part of this series of meditations or it's part of what's known as the Great Scope. And in particular, the series of meditations focused on developing a good heart. And just to recap, developing a good heart, there are these five minds that build up to developing a good heart. These three kinds of love, as they're described: affectionate love, cherishing love, wishing love, which is what we'll focus on today. Then great compassion and bodhicitta, these last fourth and fifth of these minds. So we're sort of halfway through this series looking at developing a good heart. When we think about you know, we've gotten very good at developing the body. Like, you can go to a gym and you can learn how to exercise many different muscle groups, and you can get cardiovascular health and flexibility and, agility and coordination. And there's a lot of these aspects of physical health that are very well established. So not everybody in society spends a ton of time in this, and a lot of people would benefit from spending more time. But there's a lot of expertise, right? And you go to the gym and you see people who are in there most every day or many times a week, right? And they've learned how to love it, and they've learned how to work on different aspects of their physical health and integrate it into their life. And as a result, then they've sustained better physical health, and with that, typically our mental health is also influenced by our physical health. So it's good for us to, one way or another, do some kind of exercise, physical activity. And there's a relatively large amount of understanding of psychological health as well. With in the last century, there's a lot of knowledge that we've accumulated. Psychology as a division. It used to be that in some traditional societies, you wouldn't have many people in a village who could read, but maybe the village priest could read, and their areas of knowledge included some psychology, how the mind works, some philosophy, a lot of religion, and with that, ideas of history, like what's the history of humanity and so forth. So relatively earlier forms of this knowledge that now we've let go of a lot of those ideas, but one person having all that knowledge. And these days, we, the priests, the area of domain and responsibility has gotten smaller, right? They're no longer the ones you look for psychology advice. You don't necessarily have them as your first stop for relationship advice. You probably don't look to them to teach you history. They have this domain of like religion or spirituality that they provide advice on. But it's fortunate for our society that we've got people who are specialized in understanding psychology. But one thing that's a little funny is that sometimes psychology is understood from arm's length, like as through observing other people as opposed to observing ourselves. And so sometimes if you do get a psychotherapist, you need to be very, very careful, very mindful, because you're basically saying, you're basically coming under the influence of someone, and their worldview will influence you for better or for worse. And so you want to be, choosing a therapist, for example, who will have a good influence on you, because we take on some from anybody we hang out with. Every time, normally when we're hanging out with somebody, if it's a fairly equal interaction, we take on things from them. And certainly if we're looking to somebody for advice, we take on a lot of their views and ideas and so forth. But psychologists, may have passed a lot of exams and know a lot about, theoretically how the mind works and be able to speak that language and so forth. But not every psychologist has done a fantastic job of mastering their own minds, right? Of learning how to work with their own tendencies and cultivate their own mind. And so what we're doing in these classes, we're always focusing on our own mind. We're not focusing on somebody else's mind or the theories of mind nearly so much as we're focusing on our own mind. And we have it's a very different view when you look inside compared to when you look at somebody's behavior outside or ask them questions or survey them. And we're trying to understand the mind by understanding our mind. But we're not just trying to understand, we're trying to kind of get some control or handle over our mind. We're learning to work on the mind. And we were talking earlier about Earth Day, which was yesterday. Earth Day has been, I think I saw this not long ago. I think it started in maybe 1972, and it was pretty early on, earlier than that. Okay. Sorry. Um, so anyway, it's been around for a bunch of decades. Okay. Oh, 1970. Gotcha. Thank you. Eileen was so okay. Thank you, Eileen. April 22nd, 1970, the first Earth Day. So Earth Day came about from the recognition that we were starting to dramatically ignore the Earth, and even back in the 60s, very strong vocal community saying, "Listen, we're destroying so much of the Earth," and that obviously 60 years on, or hundreds of years on from the Industrial Revolution, or 150 years on from the Industrial Revolution, we're way further down the road of destroying the Earth. So we've gone from being vulnerable to the Earth, and Eileen was saying earlier she looked at the Earth Day celebrations, but was not as enthusiastic of joining them yesterday because it was raining, right? And we know this is the nature of nature, right? It rains, it gets cold, there's insects eating things and blights that damage crops, and animals that can attack you, and mice that get into your food. And so nature historically for humans has not necessarily been a friendly force. It's been an overwhelming power, right? It's something that we have tried to deal with, and maybe tried to live with, and some societies living in more peacefully with it than others, but causing significant problems and risks for us. And so we spent a lot of our time trying to figure out how we could gather water, food, shelter, protection from animals, and there's a lot we can learn from indigenous societies in terms of how they felt themselves to live in harmony. But because we were at such risk from nature, then we made great efforts to try to control it and protect ourselves from it. And now we've been overwhelmingly successful to the point that nature's on the run. The pendulum is swung far towards humans. And so now we're living in a human society that's overwhelmingly complex, right? We're living in a society of strangers, right? We're almost all of us are surrounded all the time by, we don't know the people in our local area. It's a human-made world, and we're living in complexities that have been created by humans. The greatest risks to society are human-made risks, and then if you want, the backlash of nature through climate change. But why am I getting into all of this? It's to say that, in a sense, we are still, while we have this strong artificial distinction between humanity and nature, it's an artificial distinction. We are, in fact, part of nature. The body is part of nature. The mind is part of nature. It's that part of nature that we're carrying with us all the time. But the mind is the part of nature that we're less familiar with and often have less control over. Still has some of that overwhelming power. If there's a storm of depression in the mind, and it's just a rainstorm that lasts for an hour, for a day, for a week, for a month, for a year, it's more powerful than we are. We have not yet learned how to protect ourselves from these natural storms inside our own mind. And just like when humanity's gone too far and undermining our own well-being through damaging the natural ecosystem. So similarly, humanity has gone so far into creating this world, this human-made world. Our own mind is rebelling, right? Our own mind is rebelling in a sense of not knowing how to adapt and live peacefully in a world of strangers, not knowing how to adapt and live peacefully in a world of infinite information, not knowing how to adapt and live peacefully um, in a world where you can learn about something like a war and have absolutely no power to, to help, right? Something on the other side of the world. So the part of the nature that we need to get to know is our own mind. And when we're looking at these meditations on the great scope on developing a good heart, we are in particular looking at this part of our mind about how do we deal with strangers, right? How do we deal with strangers? And how do we deal with those people closest to us? And how do we cultivate? How can we work with the nature, the natural part of the natural way that our mind works, understanding our mind so we can work with the grain of our mind, changing our mind, shaping our mind the same way people work out and improve their their flexibility and their cardiovascular strength. We need to work with the mind to improve our good heart. So specifically with wishing love, what does this mean? So I've introduced affectionate love, which is this mind, a warm heart, and a feeling of closeness. You can mentally repeat to yourself, affectionate love is a warm heart and a feeling of closeness. The one disadvantage of these classes here is we don't have quizzes, so your ability to remember may be compromised because you've not subjected yourself to quizzes. Maybe we can introduce pop quizzes one day. You show up for meditation class and there's a quiz. How will that do for reducing your stress? So we need to learn these things. So affectionate love is a mind, a warm heart, and a feeling of closeness for others. On the foundation, and it's very based on feeling. And this mind, on the foundation of that, we develop cherishing love. Cherishing love is a belief that others are important, that their happiness is important, their freedom is important. And it is the nature of belief or an understanding. Affectionate love is more a feeling. How do you feel towards somebody else? Cherishing love is more the nature of a belief, but beliefs can be. Thank you. I think, yeah, maybe we really can issue quizzes here in Zoom. But cherishing love is a belief. It's a belief that someone's important. And this belief I mentioned on Tuesday I think it was Tuesday, but it has a special power to stabilize this mind of love. So, for example, um, Eric was mentioning about having a 1.5-year-old. Sometimes a 1.5-year-old generates this I'm having to imagine, of course, but generates an overwhelming feeling of love, closeness, warm heart. That's affectionate love, right? And on the basis of that, you believe that this person, this child, is important, their happiness is important, their freedom is important. But sometimes their behavior doesn't generate pleasant feelings, like they're screaming again. And so their behavior is generating unpleasant feelings, right? But cherishing love has a stability to it that affectionate love doesn't always have, right? Cherishing love, you believe that this person's important. And that belief of cherishing love allows you to weather, difficulties, and minor annoyances and discomforts. Listen, they are important. Their happiness is important. Their freedom is important. I'm going to look after them, even if they're disturbing my peace and my mind and so forth. And so we need to develop cherishing love as the foundation for a stable mind of love. Now, wishing love arises naturally from cherishing love. If you see that someone is not happy, you want them to be happy. Similarly, compassion arises naturally. You see someone suffering, you want them to be free from suffering. So how do we, and wishing love is the nature of a wish. Affectionate love, the nature of feeling. Cherishing love, the nature of belief. Wishing love, the nature of wish. They're all three closely related. They're all three can arise together. So, what does it mean to wish someone to be happy when you are concerned that they're not happy, or you feel that they're not happy? Again, it starts with cherishing love, feeling that they are important and precious. And the obstacle to cherishing love is our own self-cherishing, feeling that only we are important, only we are valuable, we are precious. So, wishing love, the nature of a wish for others to be happy. There is always within our heart, there is always a wish for us to be happy. This wish is arising all the time. So, for example, whenever there is some discomfort, even physically in your body, a little bit of pain, you want to move away from it, and that is compassion for yourself. And if you're not feeling very happy, you want to be happy. You want to do something that will make you happy. And we think about this a lot, like what would be nice to do today? What would I like to do? What would make me happy? What food would I like to eat, for example? Um, This is your wishing love for yourself. And this is a wish that is continuously abiding in our mind. It is a constant, it is as constant as our life force, as constant as our breath, right? Our breathing arises naturally. If um, try to hold your breath, you will notice this wish, a wish to breathe in or a wish to breathe out. That wish arises continuously. There's a subtle wish underlying our breathing. Similarly, this wish to be happy arises as naturally and constantly as our breathing. So, by recognizing our own wish to be happy, we can use that to identify with others' wish to be happy. Um, Even, this wish to breathe in, if we hold our breath, wish to breathe in, wish to breathe out, that is the same for everyone, right? Every living being, right? Every being that breathes, at least, has this wish to breathe. Um, if the ability to breathe um, is impeded, that wish grows strong. Eventually, that wish grows desperate, right? And so, from that point of view, if one one very intimate thing, an intimate physical experience you can have is watching someone else breathe, right? Watching somebody else breathe, watching them sleep, like a little child, watching a child sleep, watching them breathe, or your partner, or your pet, or someone. It's very intimate, right? Because you see they're the same as me, right? They're breathing, same as me. Um, in the same way, you can notice they want to be happy, same as me. They want to be free from suffering, same as me. So compassion, not in this series of talks, but in a later series of talks, I'll also introduce a breathing meditation called mounting, taking, and giving on the breath. And this is a breathing meditation where we actually imagine breathing in the suffering of others out of compassion, breathing out pure happiness, and giving that to others out of love. And so you can even tie your breathing to the cycle of wishing love, wishing to give happiness, compassion, wishing to take on the suffering of others. Maybe deserves a bit more explanation so we don't misunderstand, but so it's not just accidental that I'm mentioning the breathing here. Looking at our own wish to be happy, wish to be free from suffering, and ignoring everything else, we can think, I'm just the same as everybody else. Looking at somebody else's breathing, again, this is the disadvantage that I have as the father of a dog, but not a human. But still, sometimes when I see my dog's breath, or like feel my dog's breath, there is this little flicker of thought. It's the same as me. So interesting. It's a little living creature. It's a little breathing creature. Earth Day is a moment to reflect on the billions upon billions upon billions of living creatures who are breathing just like us. and who are at risk due to human extremes of human activity. All of these living beings, human, non-human, we want to be happy. All of these living beings, human, non-human, we want to be free from suffering. When we look at our own mind, we are looking at nature. We are looking at our own natural wish to be happy, our own natural wish to be free from suffering, and we are seeing that we are part of nature, right? We are not separate from nature. We're just like one ladleful of this ocean of nature, physical, mental phenomena. Okay. So in our meditation on wishing love, we'll actually focus more on cherishing love because it's such an important foundation that it deserves us to put most of our energy into developing cherishing love. But we'll focus on this meditation on cherishing love by really getting to know this wish, our own wish, others' wish, and feeling the unity and the similarity of our own wish to be happy, wish to be free from suffering. And it is through familiarity that this becomes more natural. It's through familiarity that, just like with familiarity through lifting weights, you become stronger. Through familiarity with flexibility, you become more flexible. Through familiarity with cherishing others and wishing love, this mind becomes more and more a natural part of how you operate, how we think. We can change nature. Clearly, we've changed all of the outer nature. We can change human nature. Human nature is not to be self-centered. Human nature is not to be violent, angry, isolated, fearful. Human nature is to trust and to love as much as it is these other things. We can cultivate this aspect. Okay, so we can take some time for our meditation now. We begin by sitting comfortably. And if we want, we can put energy into our posture. Holding our back straight helps us to keep a clear mind. We are lifting. We're not just slouching. We are lifting the weight of our body gently, like embracing the whole body, like lifting ourselves up, our body up a bit, as if we are using our strength to hold or carry someone we love. So we hold our own body lovingly. And we make space for our breath. We breathe in deeply and breathe out, freeing, opening our body, making it more comfortable, spacious. Then another breath, relaxing, especially relaxing any tension that inhibits our breathing, like tight clothing. Sometimes our muscular tension can restrict our breathing. And sometimes our mental obsessiveness can constrain our attention. So we make space in our mind to pay attention to whatever is most important for us. Just ask ourselves, what is important right now? And with every breath, we can feel this body is nature. It is not separate from nature. This distinction of me and the world is false. This distinction of me and nature is false. This distinction of inner and outer is false. And as we breathe, we focus on the breath just at the tip of our nostrils, this invisible wind flowing in and out of the cave of our body, this empty cave of our body flowing in and out of our nostrils and lungs. We are breathing in nature. We are breathing out nature. As we breathe in, oxygen enters our bloodstream through our lungs, flows to our heart, and flows to every cell in our body. We are breathing in nature. It is flowing into every cell in the body. This oxygen fuels the inner fire of our metabolism, converts, allows us to synthesize the fuel that our cells need to survive. And as a waste product of our metabolism, we generate carbon dioxide, which leaves every cell in our body, enters our bloodstream, flows to the heart, flows to the lungs, and then out with our out breath. We are breathing out nature. We are breathing in nature. We are breathing out nature. Metabolism works almost the same way, whether you are human, animal, insect. Even plants and bacteria are mostly similar. There is a fire of life burning inside of us. It is part of the fire of all living beings. Consuming oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. And how does this fire manifest in our psychology? How does this wind of oxygen, carbon dioxide, this wind of the exchange manifest in our psychology? We have a sense of self. We wish to exist, be happy, be free. Every moment of mind, every tiny thought is characterized by this wish to be happy, to be free from suffering. Trying to take in happiness, trying to expel and remove suffering from our mind. We first begin by developing wishing love for ourselves, thinking, may I be well and happy. Just as our body wants to breathe, we give our body space to breathe, so the mind wants to be happy. We give our mind space to be happy. May I be well and happy. We bring to mind our social circle, our everyone who's close to us or has influenced us, our parents, friends, family, co-workers, neighbors, whether we like them or don't like them normally, we bring to mind all the people who touch us, influence us. Rather than imagining them in the normal way, we imagine that we're all in a beautiful, inspiring, uplifting environment, and that these people around us, they are happy, virtuous, peaceful, and delighted to be engaging in meditation along with us. And we think just as they are the same physically, they are like a fire burning of life. We are all the same mentally. Every moment of our minds is part of nature, wishing to be happy, wishing to be free from suffering. There is no difference between myself and others from the point of view of this wish. We can think of people in general, or we can think of specific people and think, may they be well and happy. May my parents be well and happy. Thinking across time, across space, doesn't matter. May everyone be well and happy. And even in this very brief period of time together, our minds have changed. We have strengthened this good heart. It's like an inner pathway to totally changing our mind, that the more we walk this path, training in wishing love, the deeper and more natural this path becomes, until eventually it becomes a highway that influences everything we do and influences everyone we come in contact with. And this is real leadership in our society. And we make a decision, a determination to carry this mind into our daily life. Whoever we meet, thinking, this person's important, their happiness and freedom is important. May they be happy, may they be well and happy. Then we can open our eyes and arise from our meditation.